All right.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon. We'll kind of open this up a minute early, so we'll wait a couple moments till we get started. In the meantime, before we do, we've launched an intro poll question. So if you guys could answer it to the best of your ability, we're going to wait probably like 20, 30 more seconds till we get started. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started. Today's webinar is covering how to enhance your construction projects using financial KPIs. Today we are joined by Bobby Gonzalez, Brian Muncie, and a special guest, Bruce Orr, who wasn't originally going to be on here today. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering common project financial KPIs, such as profit margins, earned revenue, change orders, cash flow metrics such as billings with outstanding invoices, billed to date, and then tying all this stuff together, how to empower your project manager to truly be the financial leader of their projects. So with that, I'll pass it off to Bruce to let him introduce himself.
All right. Yes. Thank you, John, and good afternoon or good morning to you all. My name is Bruce Orr. I'm the CEO and also a rare title, but Chief Data Scientist. And today we're diving deep into the financial heartbeat of construction management. We're here to explore everything from the bedrock of common financial KPIs to the pinnacle of transforming KPI strategies. And so it's like tools like Pronovos are, I think, pivotal in turning financial insights into your competitive edge. And as John was saying, we have two great mavens. We have Bobby Gonzalez and Brian Muncie. Bobby, his background is construction management, and he was a practitioner. He also is now with the Pronovos team, and he'll be talking about the essential KPIs that you need. And Brian, loved it. Always hear him talk. He will navigate us through the landscape of financial acumen for non-financial professionals, but we know that we have quite a few seasoned people on the call, and I'm excited to hear what they all have to say. So I'll turn it over to you, Bobby.
Yeah, I'll do a quick intro and then I'll shoot it over to Brian. But so I'm Bobby Gonzalez, Director of Business Development with Pronovos. I've been in construction now for 17 years. I've done everything in construction, from being a laborer to being a foreman, a master electrician, project manager, and then finally executive at a firm with a top line of about 85 million. So I feel like I've got a pretty good rounded experience to where I can speak on, from the project management standpoint and operations, but as well as on the executive standpoint and on reporting and some of the things that are required. I've also attended the ABC IEC Purdue construction management program, which was amazing, and currently enrolled at Texas A&M for construction law master's program. For that, I will shoot it over to Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby and Bruce. Brian Muncie, I'm with CBIZ Somerset. I'm a senior manager on our construction team. So I handle a lot of construction clients, from general contractors all the way down to specialty trade contractors, both on the assurance side and advisory side. We have several clients through the Midwest and throughout the country that we deal with. And I've been dealing with those contractors since I started in public accounting over 20 plus years ago. So happy to be on board and appreciate Bruce and his group having me join today. John, you want to go ahead and go to our first slide? So again, thanks everybody for being on. The first area that we're going to hit on is financials and really just KPIs of a contract at a very high level. So you can see on the page here, we've got your high level metrics on a project. We've got the Lower right, we have the final contract amount. So that's our current contract amount. And then we have our current cost budget for the contract. So those are your two key overall contract amounts. And then if you kind of go back up to the top left, we've got, if there's been revisions, you can see that here from the original contract. If there's been revisions to the budget, your cost incurred to date is the job cost right there in the middle. And then we've got your over under billings, which is based on your build to date number. And then lastly, we have your earned revenue. These are, your key metrics that your project managers and then your construction financial managers are going to kind of look at a high level before you start diving into a project review. And you're kind of just seeing, okay, does this meet my initial thought with what I know with the job, what's progressing with the job, conversations with the owner, those type of things.
Hey, Brian, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to interrupt. And also just for the audience, if you have any questions, you'll find the Q&A at the bottom. Feel free to ask whatever questions you may have. I'll take the responsibility of monitoring that. But my question for you, Brian, is, I know you live and breathe these type of metrics, these KPIs, and you work with a lot of contractors across the United States. My question is, how often are you finding your clients having project managers seeing this type of information? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because I'm curious, is this something that all PMs are looking at, or is it just a select few?
Yeah, I would say, it does vary a lot across our client base. I would say your best in class contractors would be seeing it on a regular monthly or even weekly basis just to keep tabs on it. But I would say some of our other contractors that, don't, provide that information. It is just the construction financial managers, the accounting, controllers and CFOs that are seeing that information. And the project managers aren't seeing, the whole scope of this. So it does vary. I'd say if you want to be in that best of class, that you would be providing this to your project managers on a regular basis, and they would have access to it, either readily whenever they needed it or wanted to look at it.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. So we're going to a poll question just kind of to gauge the audience here of those key metrics. And the reason why is, of those metrics, a lot of those were, hard and fast. The contract amount, what I build, your cost, but that earned revenue number, that's a calculation. So just kind of wanted to gauge the audience if we, truly understand that, especially from, we were doing this because if we had a lot of project managers, maybe they know a lot of those other metrics, but maybe not real gauged on earned revenue and what that means from a GAAP perspective. So anyway, we've got a poll question up. Give you a few more seconds here to respond, and kind of want to just see what our thoughts are from our audience.
If we get it right, is there a prize?
Yes, the prize is that we get to move quickly through what the calculation is for earned revenue and move to some other key areas.
I think we got an overwhelming response of project incurred cost, Brian.
All right.
So we'll share it with everyone, but 3/4 of the people. So
that's good. That's the correct answer. Your incurred cost is what's going to be the driver for your revenue. And these other things are, really your project billings or cash flow, which we're going to get to that in a little bit. And your AI schedule of values, that's just something you're doing through the billing process and kind of associated with the invoice. John, go to the next slide real quick. So, this is why that's key. Your formula for recognizing your percent complete, your incurred cost, and then you're going to divide that by your budgeted cost. So everybody's pretty familiar with that. So we're not going to spend a lot of time, but it is in the slide deck that we have. John, go ahead and down. Whenever we're looking at the financials and we're looking at that stuff, I think the one thing that just want to high level show is go down to slide 7. So go down another slide, John, as we move through right here. So another key metric here is we had the budget in there, and that's what we have here in the B section of the this picture here that says estimated cost. The reason why I bring that up is estimated cost is another key component in driving the percentage of completion on a project. And you can see in scenario one, we've got $1.4 million project with $1.18 million in estimated cost. And then we've got an estimated margin of 220. And then if you go over to the right, we've got an earned revenue calculation based off that of 860,000, and we've billed $800,000 to date. So we're under billed on that particular project of $60,000. If we go down to scenario two, which go back, John, to that same slide, we've got the difference in this metric is we've got estimated costs of 1.3 million here. So we dropped our margin down 120,000, which then drives our earned revenue down to 780,000. And we're actually overbilled by about 20,000 in that scenario. These are the same contract. The only differences are the estimated cost. What I wanted to drive home with this is the importance of estimated cost, because if you have an original budget of 1.1 million, and then you're not properly updating your costs for possible overruns or where there's scope changes or things like that, then you can see that if you didn't update your estimated cost, but your costs are going, your actual costs have those costs, you may be earning revenue that maybe you shouldn't, because if you should have updated your estimated cost and your budget to the 1.3 million, which is scenario two, your earned revenue would be $780,000. So you can see that there's a variation there on your earned revenue that could, impact your income statement and your financials if you're not properly updating your estimates. So
I guess,
yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Sorry, I guess in a way of interpreting this, you want to be as close to reality as possible, and you're saying that scenario one is more than likely probably not the most updated information.
That is correct.
Yeah. How often do you experience contractors being in scenario one when in fact it is scenario two? I'm just I know, again, you work with a lot of clients, so I'm very curious to understand if this is pretty common or not.
Yeah, I mean, it gets back to what we were talking about about regular reviews. Most clients should be reviewing this on a monthly basis and updating it on a monthly basis. We have some clients that do it maybe quarterly, just because of the nature of it. But the more frequent you do it, the more accurate you're going to get that information. There's always scenarios where you've got contingencies sometimes built in, and how quickly do you want to, release those. But the closer and the more accurate you can be with that, the better information you're going to get.
Makes sense.
So go ahead, John, go to the next two slides, go down one more slide. We just kind of pass through some of that because you guys are, know how the revenue is calculated, so we don't need to spend a lot of deep dive into that. This is just kind of, recapping what we talked about. These are your kind of key metrics that you want to look at, and just highlighting earned revenue, because like I said, that's probably the one of these that maybe project managers don't know exactly how that's calculated, and maybe are looking more at from a billing standpoint. So if you start talking about earned revenue from a financial standpoint, just having them understand how that's calculating and what's really driving that earned revenue. And that billings may not drive that number. It's actually the cost and the estimated costs that are going to drive that earned revenue. So Bobby, I think I'll go ahead and switch it over to you on project.
Exactly. And that's a great segue and piggyback into this. And, and just like you said, the project forecasting for a project manager is, other than just the operational standpoint, is one of the most important things that person can do, because all of that information feeds into the WIP, right? And just like we were just showing, and and Pronovos really helps to have that accurate information. And and accuracy also includes no sandbagging. Just like you showed that one scenario where the estimated profit went down. If we have a project manager that is maybe sandbagging a little too much, then we can see where that's going to start affecting our revenue the other way. The beauty of Pronovos and the way the project manager can update it is, most project managers are used to changing things based on a percent basis, and it's a lot easier for someone to go in and change things on a percent basis. And so just like on the schedule of values, they can change their projected cost to complete, matching on a percentage. Now, if you want to get granular and you want to go by the dollars or you want to go by the hours, you can do that as well. But when you're able to do that and it's able to be accurate, then that makes everyone's being able to be agile. And an agile construction, I think right now is really important as schedules compress and and everything starts to compress. Hey, John, can you go to the next slide? The other great thing about this is on the root cause tags. And so we have the ability to attach root cause issues, good or bad, and then be able to track them historically over that project. And we can actually then see, why did we have a bust, or why did we have a pickup? And again, the same thing, you're able then to use that, not just in only, business analysis from the WIP standpoint and P&L, but also from the estimating standpoint. Are we allocating enough resources on the estimate for underground or for a certain trade type? That can really help us throughout the whole life cycle of the project.
Bobby, I love how your very first bullet point is transparency. Now, put your executive hat on when you ran a construction company. How much of a problem was transparency? And I'm not saying transparency from the sense of, someone's intent, but it could also be because they don't have the tools or the knowledge. So was that a problem in the past for you?
It can be, especially for, like I said, for maybe a project manager that doesn't have as much experience. Maybe someone a little bit newer to the industry, and like I said, they want to maybe show things in maybe a little bit better light than what they are. And the same thing, transparency really helps, because if there's an issue, it's a lot easier to identify that issue and start mitigating that issue when you have plenty of time. Most construction projects, are a longer life cycle. And so if we can identify and we know, hey, right off the bat, we found this issue, and be very transparent about it, then it gives the whole team, not just the executive team, but the project management team as well, to say, okay, how do we start addressing this, and how do we start combating it to get in front of it, so to speak. Any other questions on project forecasting or tying into the WIP? I mean, I know we're kind of taking this very high level view of it, because I mean, to me, like I said, that's one of the most important things that a project manager can do. It's just that we don't have a certain amount of time, and I do want to eventually get into change orders, because that's the next issue. Everybody knows the famous change order picture, and contractors love change orders, owners hate change orders, right? But we go to the next one, John, so we don't have to look at this guy's yacht. But I think it's important to understand, an actual perfect project is not necessarily a project that you bid too low and then you got a big change order and made a bunch of money. A perfect project would be a project that was bid very accurately, no change orders, done perfectly on time, executed, and made the amount of money that it was supposed to. There's no such thing as a perfect project in that regard. So there's always going to be change orders. And so I think it's important, though, to be able to track the change orders, not only individually, which most firms are probably doing, but also on a from a firm basis or from a project basis. In other words, not just tracking the change order. Okay, I bid the change order at 20%, 25%, whatever it may be. But then also, how does that change actually affect the whole project as a whole? Did that change? Did we make sure we had the extra insurance that's going to be required? Is more supervision going to be required? Does the crew size have to now change, and therefore it is more supervision? You know, if you think of a project as an assembly line, you know, anytime you go and try and change something up, it stops all the gears. Everything has to get reset and redone. It's the same thing on a construction project, right? Every crew has what they're supposed to be doing, and when you throw that change order in there, everything kind of grinds to a halt, and it has to be redone. And so the change order analysis actually helps show us reality from a project basis on how did this really help. I think John, it's on the next slide, I believe. That goes into cash flow. Sorry, but yeah, but individually, it will show us on, you know, if this one change by maybe made $100,000 change, and maybe we thought we were going to make $30,000 on it, but it can show us, did that actually take place? Did we take into account everything that was supposed to happen within that change?
You know, I actually like this screen, Bobby, and I'm glad that this is part of the presentation. Because, you know, as you know, change orders, it's kind of part of the business. I'm curious, what you're showing now, this is for the project manager, I assume. They're looking at, they're still in the project review phase, and they're trying to understand their change orders and creating a narrative around any new change orders that might come up. Is that what I understand?
Correct, right. And so that you can see everything on one given screen, you know, not having to go on the different silos and in different, you know, data silos of where maybe all this may be housed, where we can see everything, and then obviously give us a holistic picture from a project standpoint.
Got it.
And one good thing, Bruce, with this is that with the documentation, you know, it's all there and it's all with the project. It's all readily accessible inside of, like, you know, the Pronovos platform. So if you ever want to refer back to it, you have it, as opposed to, you know, the project manager maybe having his notes on his copy that's on his computer, or, you know, in the change order. It's all right there, accessible, and I guess back to your comment earlier, transparent, right? You can reflect back on it and know pretty easily and quickly, you know, what's going on or what was previously going on with the project.
Makes sense. Love it.
So now we're going to move over to billings. And, you know, billings is really, you know, a cash flow mechanism for the business, right? I mean, that's what's going to drive the cash flow for the company to be able to pay their bills related to the project and things like that. And we just wanted to kind of point out, you know, why it's so important. And if you look at some of these industry facts, you know, 50% of new contractors fail in the first 5 years, most of those in the first 2 years. The number one reason for a contractor failure, lack of cash flow or working capital. A company can be profitable but still fail because it lacks sufficient cash. And then most construction projects require sufficient cash investments throughout the project. You know, that's the working capital that the business must have. So you know, billings are very important, and they're really a cash flow mechanism for the business. John, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So, you know, they're very important. Well, what's driving the need for that cash flow? And, you know, and from a project standpoint, you know, when are our needs going to be for cash? So you really have to kind of look at some of those direct costs and your payment terms, or, you know, for those costs. So on materials, you know, typically with those suppliers, you can get a 30-day, you know, payment term with those. On your labor, you know, it could be 7 to 14 days, depending on if you pay weekly or biweekly. And then on your equipment, similar to materials, you're probably going to be able to get a 30-day payment term there. If you're a general contractor, or, you know, maybe a trade contractor and you're using subcontractors, hopefully you've got a paid when paid type clause, so that way you're not extending yourself whenever you don't have the cash from the owner. And then general conditions, those are going to vary based on various costs, but those are probably going to be in the 30-day realm. So if we kind of look at that and know that's the baseline for our costs, and know that we need to have cash flow to be able to pay those, John, you can go to the next slide. You can kind of look, if we lay that out, you know, here at the top, we've got, you know, okay, we're going to do the work. And let's say that light blue is, you know, a 30-day window. And we're going to invoice it maybe in the first 5 to 10 days of the new month. And then we're going to have maybe a 30-day payment term once the customer or owner, gets the invoice to turn around and pay us. So we're easily looking at, maybe a 30-day window from our invoice. But if you think about when we initially incurred some of those costs, you could be talking about, anywhere from 45 to, 60 days potentially. And that's just in the normal payment cycle, right? This is per the contract. Well, take that, and John, go to the next slide. What if, we were to go to, not getting all the paperwork to the, owner or the customer, and then they're going to delay, paying us. So then you're looking at 45 or 60 days from the date of invoice for them to, pay us. And then you're getting to 75 to 90 days from whenever some of those original costs went out the door that the company, had to incur. And then, just one other example, go to the next slide, John, would be, what if we delay in our invoice? Then that's going to be in that same potential time frame where we're looking at 75 to, maybe 90 days before, that we incurred some costs as a company before we get paid back those from the owner. So that's why billing is such an important thing, and trying to get ahead of billings. John, you can go to the next slide. So we kind of just have, here, inside the Pronovo software as part of the project review, it gives a snip of, okay, what invoices are outstanding and how long. A lot of times project managers won't have that AR side of the equation to know how long invoices have been out there. So, if they know that the customer is behind, then maybe they will, be able to talk to the customer and owner, figure out the issues. It may influence their next billing as well, because they are realizing that the customer is delaying things a little bit longer than what they thought, and it's taking longer to get that cash flow. John, you can go to the next slide. Here's just an example, of the, how quickly, the customer is paying the invoices. So you can see in this example, they were doing pretty good at paying, around that 55-day level. One came in really early. And then, okay, here lately, it's been increasing. And we can see on average it's at 60 days, but it seems like there's a trend here lately that they're, taking longer to pay the invoices. So that might be where you want to step into the customer or owner and say, hey, you guys are kind of, having some issues here and getting us paid. What can we do to get these turned around faster, right? Just information in the hands of the project manager as they're going through a review to understand the cash flow of things, because that's what's helping fund their project. John, go ahead and go to the next one. And then, from a cash flow management, what are some best practices? Establish this monthly review with the owner, educate your owners or representatives, ensure invoices are accurate, right? You want to get it accurate on the first time. Make sure you have all those requirements that your owner has of every information that they need. So that way it doesn't get, set aside and then you have to go through troubleshooting that. Ensure that they're timely and that they're consistent. And then, the overbill thing, you want to overbill as best you can. That way that you're getting a little extra cash. Remember, you've got retainage provisions on your projects. If you have a margin of 10%, well, every time if you're billing, you're not getting your margin. All you're getting is recuperation of your cost. So if you can overbill, that's going to help from a cash flow perspective. Also, it's going to help from the timing of those bills, because you're going to be able to have that owner help finance the project as opposed to using your own working capital within the business. And another point just to make on a retention, you can have a lot of money tied up in that. Maybe look at having provisions where that can be reduced from 10% to 5% or cut in half or whatever you're currently having your contracts once you're halfway through the job. That way you can get some of that retention, some of that profit early on, and they don't have to hold the entire retention, to the end of the entire job, not just your part of that process. John, go to the next slide. We talked about a little bit about overbillings. Overbillings are key, making that owner finance the project. Another option is, looking at your schedule of values and seeing how you can front end load, which we mean there is, the items that you think you're going to hit first in the project, maybe putting more of your profit margin and overhead to those if you can. So you're getting some additional cash flow early on in the job to help with the project. We talked about overbilling the best you can, and then just good communication with your customer, so that way you're getting paid within that 30-day window as quick as possible. So I think that's all we have there on billings, John. We can go ahead and keep going because I know we're running a little tight, maybe on time. I do want to hit on this graph real quick. This is a good graph within the Pronovo software that I really like. You can see the green is the cash line. The black line is our cost that we've incurred. And then the blue line is when we build. And then we're going across the page from a time standpoint. And you can see on this job early on, we were behind, right? We were incurring costs, but our cash wasn't keeping up, even though we tried to bill. And what that means is we were financing the project early on. Then you can see about, a quarter of the way through, we kind of got from a cash and cost, we kind of got even. We kind of kept a little bit even there, but we really never did get way out ahead. So we were just barely, recuperating cash as we went along, to track on our costs. So we weren't even getting in of our margin on this job until the very end. So I just think this is a good graphic. If a project manager had this, they would be able to see how well their billings are tracking to their cost, and maybe see if there's a way that they can push the envelope on billings to get ahead of it, or get more cash in the door sooner. So with that, I think, John, I'll forward on to you again.
Yeah, we have a quick poll question, and I'll pass it off to Bobby. Just wondering how frequently you guys are running project review, job review, performance business review types of meetings, the frequency that you guys are doing it. So we'll leave this open for a couple seconds, and Bobby, if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if anyone's not doing currently project review, I would definitely start. I think that the project review process really takes everything that we just hit and condenses it into a standardized version, and Pronovos really helps take that and empowers the project manager. John, if you want to go to the next question, or we can look at the answer if you want, but yeah, so it really empowers the project manager. Bruce, you talked about monthly. Yeah, it looked like monthly was kind of the main one, which was, monthly should be probably the minimum. Weekly for some, maybe a little bit too much, but monthly should definitely be done. And in construction, that's usually when things are done on monthly calendars. But by doing the project review, like I said, it's able to have that project manager bring up issues or concerns, whether it has to do with billings or whether it has to do with the financials or change orders. And it's able to, by our process, it's able to standardize it and save time of having someone have to go and get all that data most contractors already have all that data. It's just now Pronovos is able to grab all that data and present it in a standardized version for the team to review, again, on your monthly or bi-weekly basis, whatever it may be. But going to go to the next one, John. And then now to the, on to the exec side, it's able to give you a lot of project KPIs that are going to be very, very important without necessarily having to drill down overly into something. The day sales outstanding, I mean, just like Brian was talking about, I mean, if you have a contract provision that says, we're supposed to get paid on net 30s and you're constantly at 45, and you can objectively show that, this can help satisfy that, or it can help, the executive say, I'm going to step in, I'm going to call my counterpart over there and see why we're constantly being delayed. As well as, it's just like we talked about earlier, Bruce, it's all about that transparency. If we can start identifying these issues very early on, and with the project reviews, even save previous reviews where we can go back and look at it and say, yeah, we've been tracking that we have this problem, and we've been tracking it, since three months ago, and we really haven't, tried to do anything to mitigate it. Well, then now, you're able to identify that. And then from just a pure efficiency standpoint, like I said, if we're able to now, more efficiently get all that data and analyze it to where we're not, I know for us personally, it took the admins the better part of call it the project administrators, probably 3 days to get all the project managers' information ready, have them review it, say yes, and then it's a hodgepodge of their notes, and it didn't have a good flow. And then those same people that happen to go update it for the meeting notes. This is able to standardize all that and make it just so much more efficient. And if a project review can help mitigate one issue, then I think that the process itself speaks for itself. Any questions on that one?
No, I think
Bruce,
what
we did have.
you're
Go ahead, Brian.
No, I just say, the benefits of it, of having the standardized process and using a data analytics tool is it just gets you that readily available information. It's always going to be in the same format, right? And you can drill down to it, because a lot of this information within like the Pronovos platform is dynamic as opposed to static. So a lot of times, what I've seen with clients, whenever they're going into these job review meetings is they're coming in there with static information, right? And then you got to maybe make notes, come back and with answers, because you may not have them all. But I mean, you want your project managers to be equipped when they come into that meeting. But it probably makes for a more efficient meeting. Hopefully you can get through it a little bit quicker. You're making notes and things like that within there, and you can get to that information rather quickly. So I think that's where, a data analytics tool like Pronovos can help with that process because it, just helps facilitate it a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, that sounds spot on. There is a question from an anonymous attendee. How does Pronovos get the data to provide these insights? If you guys would allow me, I love to answer this since I am on the technical end.
Yeah, as the chief data guy, I expected you to.
All right, it's magic. We are just wizards at this. I'm joking. No, Pronovos has a lot of pre-built data extraction templates that we use depending upon the ERP that you use. And so often a lot of this data is already in your accounting system. We pull the data from your accounting system into Pronovos. We also connect to other systems. For instance, we talked about earned revenue and how that's calculated. Well, we have to get the updated costs from the PMs. And so if you're doing it in Excel or if you're doing it somewhere else, you can use Pronovos to enter that information. But if you're using Procore, we'll pull the data from Procore and provide these insights to you.
Oh, well said, Bruce.
Yeah, I would say, I know we had a finite amount of time, and there's a lot of other modules that that we can really get into, from project management and document control, and actually seeing how the project view looks. And so if anyone has any questions, hit the link down there, or feel free to shoot me an email. And even if it's just a general question, feel free to reach out and use me or use us as a resource as need be.
Yeah. Bruce, are there any more questions?
I don't see any other questions from the audience, and I have other questions, but I will save them.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending. We left Brian and Bobby's email up there. So if you reach out to them, let them know that you attended this webinar. And then we also have an upcoming webinar scheduled for March 7th on women in construction, which is something that is very important to Pronovos. I'm promoting our COO. We'll be spearheading that with a bunch of other women that are in leadership positions at their respective construction businesses that they're a part of. We'll send a recording of this webinar to everyone as a follow-up. So, and if any of you guys have any closing thoughts, I'll open it up to you.
No, just say thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it and look forward to being with you guys in future events.
Yeah, and likewise, thanks to Brian for being on and teaching us about this, and taking time out of his busy schedule. And like I said, if anyone has any questions at all or just wants to use me as a resource, please reach out.
Yeah, just one comment from Bob Scott. Thank you, and the recording will be useful. So we'll make sure we get that recording out to you. And I guess in closing, I know that in these difficult times, construction is a lot different to manage than it used to be. And I feel like where we're at in terms of technology, you have incredible sophisticated tools that can help you gain that competitive edge. So while I represent Pronovos, there are other tools out there that can give you that competitive edge. And to the audience, I just say that Excel is not always the answer. Sometimes you need something that'll give you an opportunity to respond faster and to have greater foresight. And we are the pioneers at this. So if you have any questions or want to chat about my view or any of the views of the panelists, please reach out to us.
Well said, Bruce. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending, and we'll wrap it up and hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks
Awesome.
all.
All right.
Great, thanks.
Bye.